ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Propagandacast Addendum with me, your host, Imperial Dane. Today's topic is going to be the new Stormtroopers sort of being, done in the Commander revamp patch, and possibly also talk a bit about submachine guns and sort of in the game in broader sort of terms. So, with the Commander revamp patch, of course, a lot of changes happening. One of the ones that suddenly seems to get a lot of discussion, at least, get asked about a lot, is the Stormtroopers. Specifically, the Stormtroopers lose access to the Assault Rifle upgrade. Instead, they get access to an MP40 upgrade, which is free. But comparatively with the assault rifles, for a lot of people, the MP40s just don't feel like they're nearly as good. And while the thing is, like, the MP40s actually can do a ton of damage, the problem is in terms of like the weapons profile they have a submachine gun profile. I mean, they have a very short range, and then the DPS drops off sharply, at which point it becomes really bad. Meaning, you have to get a four-man squad really close to the enemy to do some serious damage. And of course, once you get there, it's serious. But the problem is, again, compared with, say, an assault rifle profile, which, by the way, as a fun note, most of the allied troop submachine guns have, even the conscript submachine gun troop, I believe, gets to upgrade there, has the assault rifle profile. So you're basically forced to fight with an assault submachine gun profile, which was basically, I think, with the exception of the shock troopers, deemed not good enough. With units that, by the way, aren't shock troopers, I mean, they aren't bulletproof. So how does that one, for example, make to most sense? I mean, the reasoning for it, apparently, they felt too close to the Panzer Grenadiers. But, I mean, by that logic, most of the Allied infantry with submachine guns needs to be changed because they're too close to the Panzer Grenadiers or whatever. Like, the Americans get paratroops and Rangers that can basically both function as that, and nothing's changing there. So, I'm not entirely hugely supportive of this logic they're apparently trying to apply here, which honestly feels a bit dodgy. I mean, again, the Stormtroopers can do great damage to get close, but the problem is, versus other assault troops, they're going to lose out, plus their tactical assault ability, or advanced ability, which is pretty great, becomes a lot more hazardous when you have to get really, really close to the enemy to do any damage. Again, compared with, say, the Thompsons on the paratroopers, again, get the same ability, they can go absolutely to town on the enemy. I mean, it's ridiculous how much damage they can do. In fact, I'm pretty sure with their sort of assault rifle profile submachine guns, they can do more damage than the new Stormtroopers ever could hope to do. And again, they get assault rifle profiles, they get tactical assault, which is great. They get six-man squads, compared to the Stormtroopers are a four-man squad that is somehow supposed to make work with, again, submachine gun profiles, which were deemed non-workable for most of the Allied infantry. So I'm not really sure how this is supposed to work out. In that regard, it feels wonky. I mean, again, the Stormtroopers can work out great, but the problem is, as soon as like any assault infantry comes in, or any upgraded infantry and basic infantry, the utility drops off sharply, and they're supposed to be the Stormtroopers elite and all that, and that's not really it. I mean, there's a reason, for example, also why most people don't really necessarily use assault grenadiers a lot with mechanized assault, because again, they drop off so sharply in utility unless you start from the beginning, because their weapons profile otherwise pretty much sucks. And that's kind of thing. And sure, the Stormtroopers might have some utility, but that problem, you're just paying like 100 extra manpower for like a grenadier squad. I mean, even if you can infiltrate here and there, I mean, you're still paying 100 manpower extra for a grenadier squad, and as long as you have to pay 100 more extra for that, I mean, again, their utility is not going to be, wildly comparative. And the thing is, for the Wehrmacht and most basic units, again, armies, I mean, they're still sticking in most cases the basic infantry because the rifle profile is just very strong. I mean, even Panzer Grenadiers with the assault rifle profile from paratroopers and Rangers and all that don't necessarily see a lot of usage. So I'm still not entirely sure why they want to do this to the Stormtroopers on the notion that they're too similar to Panzer Grenadiers, when the Panzer Grenadiers in the first place don't necessarily see a ton of usage, when most players are still going to stick to the Grenadiers. It's like they're trying to fix something that isn't broken at all, or at least they're trying to fix the wrong thing in a sense. I mean, again, you're not seeing a lot of Stormtrooper players with assault rifles. In fact, you're barely seeing any unless they're me. So why they're trying to apply this change to unit to make it more similar to a unit which sees no much use either is a bit strange, and that's basically where the logic sort of stops for me, because it very much feels like the Austrian change, like they ostensibly tried to make it better, but they actually made it worse. And that's kind of where I feel like the Stormtrooper change is going to end up being, and that's basically, it's going to be like the Austrian, which they basically just straight up made worse and haven't tried to fix at all remotely. And I mean, I like the Stormtroopers now. The assault rifle and the tactical assault advanced ability is pretty good if you know how to use it. But like the problem is, the MP40 is just going to, in many cases, not make that much better. And so unless like they're really going to change the damage to it, because again, if they're going to have to keep that range, they need to do a ton more damage up close, or they're going to need a bigger squad. Like they need something else to make the worst, preferably though a better weapons profile that isn't just, you know, I have to be within breathing distance, because you need a better weapons profile. I mean, there's a reason why the Thompson got a better weapons profile and the PPH got one. Like, it's just not a good weapons profile. In particular, not for units that are supposed to be elite. It's terrible. And again, we're talking units again with assault rifles that are barely seeing any use. I mean, again, paratroopers are not. They're not seeing any usage because people just prefer rifles and bars. So why on earth would they then just, you know, make a unit in that sense even worse, when again the overall, you know, preferred weapons profile is just rifles and light machine guns? I mean, that's also part of the weapons balance. In this regard, the submachine guns just further fall out, and that's probably where they need, I think, to sort of apply some bigger, broader changes to how submachine guns work. I think in general, like, they need to go have a look at, like, again, most people don't use them. I mean, even Stormtrooper is theoretically nice, just drop off heavily because, again, like, their assault rifle profile is a slightly worse off than a regular one, and I mean, you just don't see them getting used a lot. And the basic question is, again, how and well, why and how can you fix them? And again, part of it's just like the basic rifle profile in most cases is just infinitely better. And there's, again, like the conscripts, you can get a ton of them and easily just spam out the submachine guns, which again have the assault rifle profile. And again, it's very potent when you can just get a ton of them. But stuff like panzer grenadiers and paratroopers and so on, you can't really. Even assault grenadiers, it becomes rather too expensive, you know, to actually get out a ton. So the question becomes, well, how do we sort of make them more interesting? Like, do we make these units apply a bit more interesting? Also note, the Ostwind, by the way, for the Oberkommando West, has not received the changes the Wehrmacht has, so this one is actually better now than the Wehrmacht Ostwind. Little side note, I just want to point that out. So in this regard, I think what needs to happen is in part just assault rifles and of course submachine guns, like if they want to make them more viable, and again, they have to if they want to keep pushing this Stormtrooper change, because otherwise I'm going to definitely not be very happy about it, because I like the Stormtroopers as they are, and while I'm not totally opposed to it, at the same time it feels a bit lazy, and it just feels like, you know, fixing stuff for the sake of changing stuff without necessarily, you know, fixing some of all the other stuff they fixed, in air quotation marks. They're like the Ostwind. Like, again, there's just too many Wehrmacht units just been left hanging about there because they just decided, oh, well, we're going to change it, but we're not actually going to make it good. Like, that units can be left like that for ages. I mean, it took them ages also to just make the Sturmpanzer, you know, actually useful again. So I'd rather not see that happen to the Stormtroopers, because, I mean, at this rate, it's going to be 2 years before they then actually make it playable again, or they make them playable again. So a part of it is just simply submachine guns just feel wonky on this and get a ton of them. And similarly with assault rifles, because, I mean, in terms of just think, like, they have shorter range against rifles, which means, of course, they have to get closer, and at the same time, they usually drop in casualties. I think what needs to happen then somehow, there needs to be, like, you know, an incentive to actually want to use your submachine guns and your assault rifles. A part of I think that's going to be simply just changing a bit, like, some smaller modifiers, like maybe make them better versus units and buildings and cover and all that, because, again, they're technically spraying a lot more lead, so, like, somehow there's, you know, bound to more bullets to go through. Maybe that way could, you know, be a way of just, you know, simulating it. So that way, they might also be more incentive, say, go for assault grenadiers and a build map with a lot of buildings, because that way the submachine gun troops, and they could just spray the buildings with it, maybe just being slightly more effective. I mean, again, that might open up for some more possibilities there. Or it could be, you know, slightly less terrible modifiers against retreating units, because, again, they're spraying them with a lot of lead. And, of course, there's a possibility of making submachine gun blast so it's a bit too good. But, I mean, at this stage, I mean, again, like, the only real sort of submachine gun or assault rifle you should see is basically conscripts with submachine guns. I mean, again, the rest consistently don't see a lot of uses. Maybe the Fultons with assault rifles, and again, that's just because they kind of messed up that upgrade and just made it straight up a, you know, heads up upgrade there, which, you know, probably they shouldn't have done. So I kind of feel like that's kind of where the situation lies at the moment. Again, it's just the basic rifle with a light machine gun profile. It's just tons better than most cases than, like, you know, assault rifles, unless again you get a ton of them. Like, you can't just get one, because you need a bunch, and you need to, like, put out some really good attacks, some flanks and all that, and even then you might not work it, because again their weapons profiles mean the enemy can more easily escape and get away. And that's also what kind of makes the Stormtroopers feel so bad, because say you pull off a good flank with the Stormtroopers, get close and pop tactical advance, they pop retreat and your DPS completely drops off, because again they quickly run out the effective range, and that's it. So again, a part of me would suggest that they actually apply some sort of modifier, at least, you know, reduce the modifier against retreating units. I mean, they did this for, like, say, Obersoldaten ages back, which of course was a problem because they got the rifle light machine gun profile. But MP40 wielding Stormtroopers do not have it. I mean, they could apply this to a few other units, and again, the more elite ones. Of course, not the ones with the assault rifle profile, at least lighten it up there. I mean, say even with Panzergun is going to get a lighter version of it. That way, maybe again, there'd be more incentive like attacking, flanking, and all that. Maybe creating a more diverse meta. But again, overall, I feel like just the part of the problem is just rifle, light machine gun profile is just so much stronger. And like, unless they're somehow trying to, change up how the makeup of these different profiles work out, changing the Stormtroopers being submachine gun is just going to, well, in most cases, further drop them off. I think in most people's minds, they're going to be decent because, again, their profiles is just going to straight up suck in the face of rifle light machine guns. So again, some sort of modifier that makes them more attractive for some sort of action there, I think is going to be what is needed for the submachine guns, and possibly a bit for the assault rifles. Of course, a lesser version of the submachine guns. I think if they can do that, that would, I think, lead to some more interesting stuff. So again, I would suggest for submachine guns, better damage versus units and cover and all that, because they're just, hang on, spraying it with lead, and if you spray with enough lead, I'm guessing something's bound to go through, and particularly like standing up close. Like, I mean, say you got a bunch with MP40s flying through the windows, like theoretically they should have a chance of murdering someone on the inside. But also just slightly, less horrific modifiers against retreating units, so they actually have a better chance of murdering them. So just, you can't just stand there and run. You have to like run at the right time, and even then, like, you pull off a really good flank, there might be some damage done. This way there could be theoretically some more distancing between the different types of units, more, incentive towards going for units with close range, because again, right now you're pretty much just incentivized in most cases, unless you're the rations, to go for a lot of light machine guns and a lot of rifles. I mean, you can go for a lot of Panzergun of the Wehrmacht, but the problem is they're expensive, and of course they're 4-man squads, meaning they're quite easily wiped, and in that regard, again, they're really, really good. I'm not going to deny it, but for the average player, they're probably not going to feel worth it. And again, that's kind of the point here. We kind of need to make them feel more worth it. We need to make them more, distinct, because otherwise, rifle, light machine gun weapon profiles are going to win out of submachine gun and assault rifles. So I think part of it just has to be there. And if we can do that, then I also think the Stormtroopers with MP40s can work out better. So rather, I would say, some high thoughts there from me, and possibly some messier thoughts there. Maybe it doesn't make fully sense, but it's sort of, trying to get around to it again. It's like there's different weapons profile, and right now, rifle light machine guns are pretty much superior. And unless, again, they could basically just keep buffing submachine guns and assault rifles, the problem is then just, further incentivize blobs. And even, the whole thing I'm suggesting could also possibly incentivize it, but at least that way, it's not for just direct damage. We can just walk towards it easily. There's still be time to retreat and all that, but again, if you can actually pull off a good flank, a good assault, there's actually more chance of a reward. Whereas currently, if you do pull it off, your opponent just has to press the retreat button, and that's it. Again, that's another reason why rifles like machine guns win out. You get in with a good, decent, good flank, you pull off damage, they retreat, you're still going to get off a ton of damage against them. I mean, that's the key element. Rifle light machine guns are great for attacking, but also just wiping out your retreat, because again, the effective profile means they can do more damage to units retreating, and that's really the key element. They're just so much better at most things, in fact. So again, I feel like there needs to be some sort of, reasoning there, and I probably also need to nerf the full Scandinavians a bit. Honestly, I feel like they were performing just with the assault rifle upgrades as well. Like, either load the received accuracy, just slowly, slightly, make the assault rifles they carry a bit less good. That's a small sign note there. So there you go, my thoughts on the Stormtroopers. Again, a lot of people sort of curious what I think, and I figure, make a video about it. And again, also some thoughts on submachine guns, a bit of assault rifles in general, and how possibly to make it all, I feel, a bit more interesting in terms of the weapon profiles, because I do think the issue in part just lies with rifles and light machine guns just trump everything in most situations. And when that's the case, well, you're not going to use a lot of submachine guns or assault rifles in most cases, because again, they just get murdered. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you agree with it. At least hope it gave some food for thought. If you haven't, subscribe, like, share, comment on it. Of course, you like me to do, donate or pledge on Patreon. Every pledge allows me to keep making videos day after day, and plus donations. So please do that. Or else I might have to go out and seek more labor-intensive things, in which case I might not quite have as much time to do all of these videos. So quick note there. But anyways, thank you all for joining in. See you all another time for another video. Cheers.